1490 News Talk. David and Dalen here. We have a guest today. We have Mr. Woodrow Wilcox from Indiana, and he is a writer and a Democrat from Indiana. You've run for the House seat in Indiana. He didn't win, but he ran as a Democrat. He's a different kind of Democrat, really. And Mr. Wilcox, you've called in today to talk to us about how Obamacare is hurting seniors, and you have a website for that called ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com. Thank you for being on the show today, Woodrow.
Thank you very much, David. First thing I want to say is that, yes, I'm a Democrat. I've been a Democrat precinct committeeman. I've been a delegate to the state convention of Democrats, and I've run for some other offices, too. But people sometimes accuse me of being a turncoat on the Democratic Party, but I'm not. I just simply care about senior citizens more than I care about any political party, any political candidate, or any political agenda. And the Obamacare law is really hurting senior citizens. And I have a unique perspective of this because for over a decade, I've helped senior citizens to correct medical bill errors that were caused by mistakes in the Medicare system. And in the first 7.5 years of working at the insurance agency where I work, I saved our clients over $1 million by correcting those mistakes that were in the Medicare system. And if you want to read more about that, in 2012 I wrote a book and published it called Solving Medicare Problems, and you can find that at solvingmedicareproblems.com. But I'm not calling about that. I'm calling about my website, ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com.
Right.
And there are many ways that the Obamacare law is bad, and I don't pretend to be an expert about everything that's bad with the Obamacare law. Rather, I simply claim my expertise of helping senior citizens with their medical bill problems related to Medicare. And that's the perspective that I give at Obamacare Hurts Seniors. First of all, it was that the Democratic Party, the Democrats in the Congress who voted for Obamacare, voted to cut Medicare benefits by over $700 billion. Now, how do you save $700 billion to spend on other things like hiring thousands more Internal Revenue Service agents?
Right. In the original Obamacare law, they were supposed to hire 16,000 more IRS agents in order to make sure that we all comply with the mandatory purchase of insurance through Obamacare.
Well, you know, it's interesting how you say the original one, because there are different versions of the Obamacare law. There was a doctor from Indianapolis, Dr. Stephen Fraser, who wrote a very detailed letter to Senator Evan Bayh saying why this law would be bad. But he only read through the 1,000-plus pages of the Obamacare law version that the House Energy and Commerce Committee had reviewed, because that's the only one that was available to him. Mm-hmm. And if you recall, when they brought out the final version, that was over 2,000 pages.
That's right.
So they put in an extra 1,000 pages of a law and got all the Democratic senators and many of the Democratic congressmen to vote for a law without even reading it. Now, you tell me, how responsible is that when they're supposed to swear an oath to protect the Constitution and our constitutional rights against all enemies? Well, they didn't even bother to read it. So a lot of lobbyists got their way by cutting backroom deals. And in 2012, the Wall Street Journal reported that new evidence showed that Barack Obama made a backroom deal with pharmaceutical companies. And I write about that in one of the articles at ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com. He made a backroom deal with pharmaceutical companies, putting in special language in the Obamacare law that would help to enrich them at the expense of Americans, especially senior citizens, who need the medicines and use the medicines that these pharmaceutical companies make. So the deal was, the pharmaceutical companies would help to lobby for the Obamacare law if Obama would put in this special language that would help to make them even more rich. So there were, and in 1,000 pages, I can imagine that many other groups got their special interests, the wording that they wanted for the Obamacare law to make them more rich or more powerful and things like that, all at the expense of the American citizens. but it especially hits senior citizens because they gutted over $700 billion for medical services to senior citizens. So how do you save the money? You start changing the rules.
Yeah.
You start changing the rules, and from my perspective, the rules started changing, and our senior citizen clients started having to pay more and more because Medicare would rule that's not necessary. Let me give you an example. A man from Lowell, Indiana, was scheduled to have knee surgery, and his doctor wanted to have an X-ray of his chest to make sure that his heart and the rest of his body was strong enough to take the shock of a surgery on his knee. So he went to a local clinic and got the X-rays that his doctor wanted, and Medicare reported back, this is not covered by Medicare. We won't help you pay for these X-rays that were taken at your doctor's request to make sure you could stand the knee surgery. And the doctor got involved and appealed that and said, no, I don't want to operate a knee surgery on someone whose heart won't take the surgery. I could get sued and things like that. It was medically necessary for me to see that he could stand the knee surgery.
Right.
And the Medicare ruled, no, taking X-ray of a chest is not necessary to performing an operation on a knee. So you've got bureaucrats throughout the country making these rules, and they're not doctors. They don't have degrees in medicine. They don't know what it takes to perform surgery on a knee and how it might shock the body, but they ruled they're not going to pay for it. I've had senior citizen women go to their doctors and get pelvic and breast exams and pap smears, and then Medicare has ruled, well, we're not covering this. And they changed the rules on, there's something called self-administered drugs. If a senior citizen goes to a hospital but is classified as not an inpatient but an outpatient, then Medicare Part B will not help that senior citizen pay for any of the drugs in the hospital, or at least not while they are an outpatient, classified as an outpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And Medicare Part D will not get a bill. Their insurance company will not get a bill for the medicine while they're in the hospital. The senior citizen gets the bill. Now, in some cases, they can collect the information about what they paid to the hospital and show the receipts and everything, and then file with their Medicare Part D company to get some sort of reimbursement. But the Medicare Part D companies will say, well, you were out of network, and we're only going to pay this proportion according to what you should have been in network, but you went to a hospital. You went to a hospital. You needed help right away.
Right.
You didn't have time to shop for the network, where to shop for your medicine.
Or you might have been in an accident and taken there.
That's right.
And
That's right.
And given a painkiller, and they said no, and then sent you home. And and this is the situation that you're looking at, and not every senior citizen carries Medicare Part D.
That's right. I can give you an example. There's a woman who's our client who lives in my hometown, and when we were young, when I was young, her children would come over to my place to get horse rides because I lived on a small farm in Indiana. She went to the hospital, and they sent her a medicine bill, a self-administered drugs bill, for over $1,500. And she couldn't get any help from anybody, and she was having financial trouble anyway. So I went to a town hall meeting with the congressman from my district and asked him if he knew about this self-administered drug problem. And he said no. So I wrote an article. And I was very polite to the congressman, and you can read about that in the article that I wrote, Spoke to My Congressman, which is at Obamacare Hurts Seniors. And I explained the self-administered drug problem there. And you might also want to find out about the warning from 60 Plus, that's the 60 Plus organization, because I attended a meeting that they sponsored, and they had representatives back, I think, in 2010 or 2012. Anyway, I wrote an article back then, and I've included that on the site, Obamacare Hurts Seniors. And there's something else that's kind of unusual. If you go to my website, Obamacare Hurts Seniors, you'll find a donate page, but then when you go to it, you'll find that I'm not asking anyone to send me any money. What I am asking is that people give their time, talent, and treasures in order to support this website and help get the word out. Because it's important that every American realize how bad Obamacare is towards seniors, both towards the seniors that we have today and future seniors, people in their 50s who are trying to help their senior citizen parents and who will soon join the ranks of the senior citizens.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, the Obamacare law has set up the math against senior citizens because they took $700 billion away, but we're increasing our numbers of senior citizens. People turning 65, the number is about 10,000 a day, and that will continue for about 17 years. So the Obamacare law reduced what senior citizens could expect in help for medical bills by $700 billion, and yet every day we're having 10,000 more people become 65 and join Medicare. So what does that mean? That means the amount of money available to help senior citizens with their medical bills is going down per senior citizen every single day. It's a disaster that's going to happen if the Obamacare law isn't changed.
Right. In other words, the senior citizens are bearing the cost of Obamacare.
That's right, by $700 billion. And with the number of senior citizens who will expect help, they now have in the Obamacare law right now a system of counseling senior citizens when they're so sick, counseling them and asking them to go ahead and die for the sake of saving the federal government money. But you think about it, in the future, if we have a president and a Congress who are sympathetic to expanding Obamacare and the law is amended, it may be that the federal government will have the power to order senior citizens to die in order to save the federal government billions of dollars a year. And that's why I have called in the past President Obama our Soylent Green president. If you remember that movie in the 70s with Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson, it was that the government was trying to talk senior citizens into going ahead and dying.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I do remember that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know how far along you are, but what is your perspective of this, Dave?
I'll be 62 in a couple of weeks. So I'm at the age that I can choose to draw my Social Security if I want to, which I'm not. But it's, I'm not very far away from being on Medicare.
Yeah.
And I always get a kick out of people that say, they don't want, and I've always said that Obamacare was designed to fail so that we'll end up in a single payer situation where only the government will have, we'll be like the European countries. And that's just the way it'll be. And because it's designed to fail, there's too many flaws in this situation. And it will fail, and then the only recourse that we'll have is to be single payer. I don't have any doubt about that. But I always laugh at people that say, I don't want the government to have my insurance, but everybody wants to be on Medicare. Everybody strives to get to Medicare because it's $125 a month. Well, I mean, that's really that's the truth. That's the bottom line. Is I know a lot of people that bitch and moan about single payer insurance, but we all want to get to. We all hope that Medicare is there when we get there, and that it'll cover us. And I realize it's supposed to cover us 80%, and we're supposed to get 20%. We're supposed to go out and get a supplement, and that's supposed to cover the 20%. And what you're saying now is they've made so many cuts in Medicare and changes in Medicare that it's not really covering 80%.
Yeah, and not only that, but with the Obamacare law, Obamacare administration has been frustrating doctors. There was an article in Accounting Today in 2010, and I write about it in one of the articles at ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com. And that article in Accounting Today said that the Obama administration was changing the Medicare rules 3 or 4 times in the same year, and was driving doctors and their accountants, mad. And so a lot of doctors were deciding either they're not going to get any more Medicare patients. They're not
right.
seek anymore, or they're going to stop associating with Medicare altogether, which makes it so that you may have Medicare, but then you can't find a doctor to serve you.
And I know doctors here in my town that are not accepting Medicare patients, and they quit taking them back in 2010. That's exactly right. When the law first started to become the law, when it first came out, they said, we're just not going to take Medicare patients anymore. We're not going to receive enough money. It's going to be a headache. It's enough of a headache now that we're not happy with it, and now we're not going to get enough money out of it, and so we're just not going to take Medicare patients. But now they're stuck because they got to take, they don't have to take Obamacare patients, and they're not in some cases. There's lots of these clinics outside of hospitals that won't accept Obamacare insurance.
That's right. And not only that, but I had
because it doesn't pay as well as Medicare in some cases.
That's right. And I had an acquaintance who was the general manager of a radio station in Indiana that basically serves the black community. And he emailed me. He said, "You're only telling half the story because Obamacare only hurts the senior citizens on Medicare." And I emailed him back. I said, "Well, no, that's a very interesting view. How about you let me get on your radio station with you, and we have a little friendly debate about that?" He never emailed me back. No. And on the website that I have, Obamacare Hurts Seniors, there's a video there in which I explain that in 2013 and 2014, 4 hospitals in Georgia that serve low-income communities have closed because of the Obamacare rules. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to serve those low-income communities anymore.
Well,
they can't afford to.
And I don't know if Georgia accepted the expanded Medicaid or not.
I don't know either.
Mississippi didn't, and 25 states didn't. 25 states did, and 25 states didn't. And I think that in a lot of cases, if they didn't accept expanded Medicaid, yes, you're going to see rural hospitals close down. Mm-hmm. There's no question about it. Or inner city hospitals. Yeah. Where you have a majority of your patients are poor and on some kind of governmental assistance. And those hospitals are going to shut down because they did not expand Medicaid.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. I just see that happening. I see that happening around. I know that there was a hospital close by here. It's not our hospital, but it's another hospital that shut down their emergency room because they couldn't afford to run the emergency room anymore. So people are now having to travel 40 and 50 miles to the emergency room.
That's right. You always have to pay attention to the math. And the math in the Obamacare law hurts people who have had their local hospital that has served them for many years have to close because the math on the hospital was changed. The math against senior citizens is the worst of all because it basically gutted a lot of the Medicare money and put it to other things like hiring thousands more Internal Revenue Service agents and a number of other things too. But the thing is, if somebody comes to your home, a stranger, and says, "I want to be a friend to you," well, fine, I don't know you, but fine. And then they show up the next day and say, "I have something for you. Here's $700. Wow, thank you. What do I owe you? Well, I just want to be your friend. And then the next day, police officers show up at your door and say, "The people who gave you $700 yesterday robbed a senior citizen center during their lunchtime. They robbed the senior citizens, got $700, and then gave it to you. That's your situation." Mm-hmm. Well, basically, that's what happened with the Obamacare law. They took $700 billion away from senior citizens to spend on other things and said they were doing us all a favor with an Affordable Care Act. Well, just last week I had a person who's not a senior citizen. I helped them, that person. They own a flower shop in my county, and because of the Obamacare law, they got a letter in February or March of this year that their insurance was going to be canceled because the insurance they had did not fit the criteria that was required by the Obamacare law, but that they could continue a similar policy for almost $200 more per month. It went from just over $300 to just under $500 for their insurance if they wanted to keep a private insurance policy that had everything that their current policy had, plus the additional Obamacare criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so our agency was able to help work out finding other things that would pretty much match. There's an interesting idea by an insurance agent in Illinois, and he suggests that some people should consider going ahead and buying an insurance policy that does not fit all the Obamacare criteria and go ahead and pay the annual penalty anyway, because financially that might make it so that they pay less for the insurance that they want and need rather than go on some kind of Obamacare plan. And that's a very interesting idea. Some people should consider that.
And a lot of people have considered, young people especially, have considered paying the penalty because the penalty's not that great.
But the penalty will increase year by year.
It does increase year by year. The first year it's a minimal amount. The second year it's still within way less than what the insurance would cost you, but it eventually gets up there. Yeah, I agree. It does eventually grow into a place to where you have to make a choice. And your better choice would be the insurance if you can buy it. That's
right. But let me suggest something. I'd like everyone to go to ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com and go to the donate page and read what an idea that I have for it. Again, I don't ask for any money to be sent to me. I've put in money for getting the website built because I think there's a lot of misinformation about Obamacare, and a lot of people don't realize how much it hurts senior citizens, and that was my goal with this website. And on the donate page, I just simply ask folks to help by donating their time, talent, or treasure in these ways. Contact everyone you know, get them to go to Obamacare Hurts Seniors. And if you're a college student or a youngster who knows how to use the internet more than your grandparent, take some time, visit them with your computer, and if they have trouble reading because their eyesight is not as good as it used to be, then you read these stories to them and help them, because when you were young, they read stories to you. And reading a story or reading an article to someone else is a sign you care for them. And there's a circle to life. If your grandparents or your elderly parents can't read these articles on the internet very well, then you be there and you read to them, and just make it so that they realize that you really do care for them. And for people who are in business, I'd like to point out that you may want to take an ad from my website and go ahead and buy an ad in your local paper or something like that, or a radio station. I'm going to be putting up radio ads too. And just simply pay for it, because I used to work for newspapers and radio stations, and I know that they often will give a discount to a local advertiser. So, you could buy the ads cheaper than I could if I wanted to try to raise money and buy ads all over the country.
Right.
It's really better if you get involved with your local community and contact other businessmen across the nation and suggest that they do the same thing. Again, you're in control of your money. You can spend whatever you want. You don't have to send any money to me, and the job gets done. More people learn about ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com, and more people get educated about how bad this law is. And I want to point out, I am a Democrat, and over 30 members of the House of Representatives who were Democrats voted against this law. They saw bad things in it, and they cared more about their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution and our constitutional rights. They cared about that more than they cared about cooperating with Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. So there are Democrats who are against the Obamacare law, and I'm one of them, and I'm speaking out from the perspective of someone who has helped senior citizens with medical bill problems that are caused by mistakes in the Medicare system for over a decade. And I just think it's a view that not many people have ever considered, and I think I'm maybe the only person in the country who has spoken out with this perspective of how it hurts senior citizens.
Right. And the people who can, in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases, can least afford to be purchasing anything else.
That's right. It hurts everybody.
Especially the medicine.
Yeah, it hurts everyone. But the people who are getting hit the hardest are senior citizens. And I would say after that, maybe the people getting hit the hardest are small businessmen, because, the government has their arm twisted behind their back to comply. And then that hurts. The small businessman doesn't have the money in order to hire more people and allow expansion of his business, and so it hurts the workers too.
Right. If he works them at all. Fortunately, a lot of the business people have had an extension of time, to 2015. But when that comes in, when that really finally hits, then all hell's going to break loose.
That's right. That's right.
That's when we're really going to see if Mr. Obamacare's, if his ratings are where they are now. Wait till 2015 comes and all these small employers have to start ponying up to this Obamacare if they don't already have some form of insurance that measures up to the Obamacare.
That's right.
Because it's got to comply with Obamacare. You may have insurance on your employees now. You may be, you may own 3 McDonald's and you've got 100 employees, and you may be providing insurance right now, but it may not comply with Obamacare. And if it doesn't comply with Obamacare, then you're liable to get a shock.
That's right. Not only that, but it also exempts people who work 29 hours or less. And so a lot of people who had full-time jobs now have part-time jobs.
That's right. Or will soon have part-time jobs.
That's right. One of the people who works at the flower shop that our client owns is a young person in their 20s who works part-time. And she said, it was reported to me, she said, this Obamacare law assumes that young people can pay more for insurance when, in fact, a lot of us have only part-time jobs or have low-paying jobs, and we can't afford the burden either. So the Obamacare law hurts many people in our society. In fact, I was interviewed for the local PBS TV station, and I've got my article about that at the Obamacare TV interview article at Obamacare Hurts Seniors. So you can read about that, where I just go down a list of how many people are getting hurt and what problems there are going to be with the Obamacare law, and that was just as it was kicking in. So I've done my best to put out the word that Obamacare hurts seniors because, you can say Obamacare hurts business people, hurts young people, and things like that. But if you say Obamacare hurts seniors, then you realize Obamacare is hurting the seniors in my family and my community. Well, then we gain a whole new perspective on just how bad the Obamacare law is, because anytime somebody mugs a senior citizen or hurts a senior citizen, especially if it could be our grandmother or our grandfather, we get upset. And so the whole country can get upset about Obamacare, and maybe if we get enough people upset about Obamacare, then in the future we can get rid of the Obamacare law. But it's not going to happen until a lot of people get angry that this happened and that this is hurting many people. And I'm just pointing out the perspective that it's especially hurting our senior citizens. And like I say, I'm a Democrat, but I care. First of all, I'm an American first and a Democrat second, and I care about senior citizens much more than I care about the Democratic Party.
Now, you've written a book called Solving Medicare Problems, and you have a website called solvingmedicareproblems.com.
Yes.
What kind of problems do you address in that, the problems that are with Medicare?
Well, a while back, several years ago, when I was helping senior citizens only, and I can only personally help senior citizens who use this insurance agency because of the HIPAA law and so forth like that.
That's right.
I calculated, well, okay, we're only one agency. We have this much in problems that I work on. We have this many people, this much of the market in our area. What is the degree, or what is the total that should be throughout the nation? Because we're probably getting a sampling for our area, and so I multiplied it out, and I realized, by golly, Medicare mistakes are causing senior citizens to be billed and probably paying over $1 billion a year that they don't owe. And I said, well, I think I want to help teach people how to do what I do. And I was especially thinking of church organizations or charitable organizations or community organizations, that they could have a group, maybe a pastor, an insurance person, and an attorney on their committee, read my book, and then help senior citizens in that church or in that community as an outreach ministry of that church. And so I wrote the book to teach other people what I do and how I do it so that they could duplicate that all over the nation. Now, maybe that book won't help save that $1 billion a year for America's senior citizens that they're being overbilled. But maybe with enough people, looking at the book, buying the book, and studying the book, and helping people in their community, maybe we can help save senior citizens $750 million a year. And that's what my hope was, and that's why I wrote the book, Solving Medicare Problems. And also, I put about 1/10 of the book online that you can read, because I wanted people to understand what this book was about and what its purpose was. And if they're not interested in the book, then don't buy it. But I gave them 10% of the book to read online for free, and that's at solvingmedicareproblems.com. So I'm hoping that my work at helping people to realize that Obamacare hurts seniors will stir up a little more interest in my book, so that hopefully churches, community groups, so forth like that, can help the senior citizens in their community. Because I have senior citizens come in and they can hardly read what they get from the federal government or from medical billers and so forth, and they don't understand it. I think the book would especially be beneficial to insurance agencies that want to reach out and help senior citizens get some of their business and build their business with that by offering a free service of helping senior citizens to review and correct medical bill problems that are caused by the Medicare system.
Now, is it the government that screws that up, or is it the hospital or the doctor's office? Who is making the mistakes there?
Well, everybody makes mistakes once in a while.
Right.
And I never come down on people when I think they just made an innocent error. I review it, but the main thing is finding where the problem is. So you have to be a little bit of an investigator, and then you have to be a little bit of a good writer to be able to write and explain, okay, your folks made a little error here. Could you please correct it because it's hurting our senior citizen client, who happens to be your senior citizen patient. Please correct this little problem. And I get cooperation. I don't come down on people unless I think there's medical billing fraud involved. And then I just, have our client sign a letter to the authorities and just say, you might want to check on this. But the main problem is with the system, the electronic data system that they use, the telephonic and satellite system for transmitting information. When the sun has a sunburst, or I'm not a scientist on astronomy and so forth, but there's something that once in a while interrupts the electrical system and the satellite communication.
Solar flares.
Yeah, I think it's solar flares, but, I'm not an astronomical expert on it, but there's something that does interrupt the system. Also through the telephone lines. There are telephone lines that cut off at times.
Sure.
When there's a cutoff, the information is being sent at the speed of light, and you cut that information off for 2 or 3 seconds, and you've lost enormous amounts of data. And many times, the insurance company does not get the ruling from Medicare because there's been an interruption in the communications, usually through the satellite, and the insurance company never gets the claim. So what I do is I have to investigate and see if that's the problem, and then I just simply write a letter to the insurance company that we represented to the client as being a good insurance company. And I just tell them, hey, it looks like you didn't get the data, and we're going to help us put the pieces of the problem together so that you get all the data you need. And usually that involves contacting the hospital, contacting a doctor, and saying, insurance company didn't get the information. Could you please send the vital information directly to the insurance company? Here's the address, here's the contact phone number, here's the fax number, and that way the claim can be paid. You can be paid faster if you'll do it, because if we try to go back through Medicare and say, collect the information to send to the insurance company, it's a real ordeal. But if we appeal to the hospital or the doctor and say, this claim can be paid faster if you will please send this vital information that the insurance company does not have, and that way you'll get paid faster. And I get a lot of cooperation that way.
Yeah, I would imagine. Everybody wants to be paid.
Yeah. So that's it. I've helped senior citizens correct these bills. In the first 7.5 years that I did this, I saved the clients of our insurance agency over $1 million. I stopped counting after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote the book, Solving Medicare Problems, which you can read 10% of the book for free at solvingmedicareproblems.com. And then when the Obamacare came along and I saw how it was hurting senior citizens, I said, I got to let people know how this thing is hurting senior citizens. And so I put up the website, ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com. And I hope that many people in your area will visit the website and learn about it, and I hope that many businessmen will tell other businessmen to go look at it, and then I challenge them. I'm using the Jesus' Fish and Loaves challenge. If you want to help, then join in and help. You know, when Jesus said, let's feed them with loaves and fishes, and came back with baskets of extra food, he basically put out a challenge to the people who were listening to him and saying, you join in, you help out. And son of a gun, the people who were listening to him did help out, feed the other people at the same meeting. And I'm just telling businessmen, why don't you put an ad in the paper, put an ad in a college paper, let the college students learn how bad Obamacare is towards their grandparents, and then go out and explain it to their grandparents, visit their grandparents with their laptops, and read the articles to them.
Right.
So, again, you go to the donate page, I'm not asking for any money to be sent to me. I'm challenging you with the same type of challenge that Jesus gave with the loaves and fishes. And I hope that you respond.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today, Woodrow Wilcox from Indiana. And his website, again, is ObamacareHurtsSeniors.com. And then from there, you can move on to SolvingMedicareProblems.com and the book, Solving Medicare Problems. And I appreciate you coming on today and explaining some of this, how seniors are being hurt the most from Obamacare. You know, there are good things and bad things in Obamacare. This is one of the bad things. And
well, thank you for letting me be on the
to.
show.